The strangest aircraft ever built, the Soviet Union's VVA-14. Hello lovely YouTube family, welcome back to Tech Power. In today's videos, we're going to talk about the strangest aircraft ever built, the Soviet Union's VVA-14. Before we start, I want you to hit that red subscribe button so that you never miss out on any of our videos. The strangest aircraft ever built is the Soviet Union's VVA-14. This is the unique and strangest ever built aircraft. The post-World War II tensions between the United States and the Soviet Union gave birth to the Cold War, a state of affairs that led to bellicose statements on both sides. We have to get tough with the Russians. They don't know how to behave. They are like bulls in a china shop. They are only 25 years old. We are over 100 and the British are centuries older. We have to teach them how to behave. This is what President Harry Truman said in April 1945. Tensions between the two superpowers continued over the following decade, and in 1956, Nikita Khrushchev uttered the following words: "If you don't like us, don't accept our invitations and don't invite us to come to see you. Whether you like it or not, history is on our side. We will bury you." The ensuing arms race brought the world close to the brink of disaster, and it took over 40 years before both sides decided that this rhetoric had to cease and attempts were made to end the ideological conflict. However, the clashes of the Cold War continued to amaze history buffs, and in particular those interested in aviation development. During the decades of the Cold War, both American and Soviet manufacturers came up with some outstanding experimental innovations and futuristic aircraft designs. The Soviet Union's Bartini-Beriev VVA-14, a vertical takeoff amphibious aircraft, was quite an innovation. Developed during the 1970s, this bizarre-looking aircraft was designed for defensive purposes against U.S. nuclear submarines. As such, it was supposed to land and take off from the water, plus be able to fly long distances at high speed. On top of that, it was also supposed to fly efficiently above the sea surface. Robert Bartini, the man who came up with this rather unorthodox aircraft, was born in Fiume, Italy, now Croatia, and after the fascist revolution in Italy, he was sent to the Soviet Union to help the young country in the field of aviation. He had graduated from Milan Polytechnic Institute as well as being trained at the pilot school in Rome. Over the years, Bartini took part in numerous projects, working as an aviation engineer. From the 1930s, he worked as the chief designer. He had already suggested the development of an anti-submarine aircraft in the 1960s. But it wasn't until 1972, when working in collaboration with Beriev Design Bureau, that the first Bartini-Beriev VVA-14 prototype was finally completed. The very first flight of the prototype was conducted on September 4th of that year, but its inflatable pontoons weren't yet fitted, which meant that it still could not land at sea. About 2 years later, the inflatable pontoons were added, but the first amphibious test flights had to be delayed until June of 1975 after numerous unpredicted problems with the pontoons arose. More modifications to the design of the Bartini-Beriev were required, but the chief designer Bartini died in 1974 and things started slowing down. The Bartini-Beriev VVA-14 vertical takeoff amphibious aircraft was developed in the Soviet Union during the 1970s, and it took almost 2 years before the required modifications, including an extension of the forward fuselage and addition of a large flap, were finally completed. However, despite the modifications, the conducted tests proved to be unsuccessful, and by 1977, the Soviets were no longer interested in the project and decided to cancel it. As an aircraft designer, physicist, astronomer, philosopher, painter, and musician, Robert Bartini is often described as a genius ahead of his time. Throughout his life, he designed over 60 aircraft and made significant contributions to Soviet aviation. Although most of Bartini's aircraft designs never left the drawing board, many of his aeronautical innovations were incorporated into production aircraft. Bartini was given a rare opportunity to realize the full potential of one of his concepts with the emergence of American Polaris missile submarines. The Soviet Union needed a new kind of aircraft to respond. Bartini proposed building the ultimate submarine hunter, designated as the VVA-14. It would be a truly unique and innovative aircraft with catamaran-like fuselage. It would be optimized to fly within the ground effect, like another ekranoplan of the era, giving it the endurance needed to fly long-range missions. It will also have wings so that it could fly like a conventional airplane if needed. Bartini would equip the VVA-14 with both conventional landing gear for runways and a unique inflatable pontoon system to give it amphibious capabilities. 10 lift jets would allow for vertical takeoffs and landings VTOL from any kind of surface, giving the aircraft the ability to operate from even the most harsh and remote regions of the Soviet Union. The development would stretch nearly a decade, but like Bartini himself, the VVA-14's design would end up being a little too ahead of its time. Three-headed dragon. The VVA-14 was designed to take off vertically from water or land. The VVA-14 was a flying boat that was supposed to take off from water or land vertically and then fly like a regular plane at altitude, says Andriy Savenko, a Soviet aviation historian. In 2005, Savenko met Nikolai Pogorilov, the deputy of Robert Bartini, during the design phase of the plane. According to Pogorilov, Bartini was a visionary who had an unusual mind and character. It seemed that he was not from his time but from some other era. Someone even called him an alien. Without a doubt, Bartini has left a mark in Soviet aircraft building. However, he became famous mainly for his ideas and concepts, and only a few of those became reality, says Savenko. Bartini, who left his home in Italy for the Soviet Union in 1923 after the rise of the fascists, had envisaged several different versions of the VVA-14, including one with inflatable pontoons to land in water and another with folding wings that could be operated from ships at sea. The prototype took to the air in 1972. It was later fitted with pontoons and tested afloat. This aircraft did not have lifting engines or any equipment for searching for submarines. It was intended only for studying the characteristics of horizontal flight and testing the aircraft systems. In total, from 1972 to 1975, it performed 107 flights with over 103 flight hours, says Savenko. The odd looks earned it the nickname Zmei Gorinich after a dragon from Russian folktales. When looking at it from the ground, the VVA-14 caused understandable associations with Zmei Gorinich. She also had, as it were, three heads as well as relatively small wings, said Savenko. A short second life. The Soviet military abandoned the project after they realized its effectiveness would be limited. The second prototype was supposed to receive the engines for vertical takeoff, but they were never fitted to the almost completed plane because a suitable engine type was never developed. This doomed the project and the aircraft was disassembled. Bartini tried to pump new life into the VVA-14 by turning it into an ekranoplan, a type of aircraft that uses ground effect to glide close to a surface like water at high speed as a hovercraft does. The resulting tests, performed just after Bartini's death, informed the development of other such aircraft, making the USSR the undisputed leader in the field. Despite this coda, however, the project was out of steam. I think the Soviet military very quickly realized that the effectiveness of the VVA-14 as an anti-submarine aircraft would have been low. It could only carry a very small number of missiles, and the technical challenges of creating such an unusual vehicle were very large. Ultimately, the military relied on more conventional aircraft for the job, says Savenko. After it was retired, the original prototype was transferred by barge from Taganrog in southern Russia, where it had been built and tested, to a small town near Moscow, Litkarino. Unloaded ashore, it was left unattended and partially destroyed and dismantled. Later transported by a helicopter to nearby Monino at the Central Air Force Museum. The aircraft remains badly damaged to this day. Indeed, some fragments of the original prototype have been in Monino for 33 years in the form of scrap metal. Why the museum administration will not take measures to restore this very interesting aircraft, I don't know, says Savenko. Missing parts. Russia's Central Air Force Museum says the cost of restoring the aircraft would be about $1.2 million. The Central Air Force Museum is mostly open air, so much as the other aircraft in its collection, the largest in the world for Soviet planes. The VVA-14 has been sitting outdoors, tucked away in the peripheral area of the exhibit. It's conspicuously missing its wings. Parts of them and the airframe appear to be lying next to it, as can be seen on Google Maps. Alexander Zadobetsky, the museum's director, confirmed to CNN Travel that several components of the plane are indeed missing. In 2012, representatives from the Taganrog aircraft plant, where the VVA-14 was built, promised to help in the research for spare parts for the VVA-14, but the lack of funding did not allow these wishes to be realized, he says. He adds that if funding were to be secured, the cost of restoration would be around $1.2 million and that it would take between 1 and 2 years if performed by aviation specialists directly at the museum. If the VVA-14 had been fully completed and tested, Savenko says it would have been a truly unique aircraft. It could have taken off and landed both horizontally and vertically and on both lands and water. It could have stayed afloat for a long time as a ship and conducted anti-submarine warfare. And of course, it could have flown like a regular plane too, he says. This versatility was its most unusual and outstanding quality. However, the VVA-14 never truly reached its full potential. That's all for today, folks. I hope you liked the video. If you did, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so that you never miss any amazing videos from us.